John here. In the UK, who will have a higher net worth by retirement age? A doctor or a dentist? This video is for you if you're currently deciding your career path and you know that you want to do something medical, but you want to know which out of a doctor or a dentist will end up with the most money. We're going to look at how much it costs to qualify for each profession, what salaries to expect, and how much each will end up with by the typical UK retirement age of 65. Let's start with how much it costs to qualify. Both of them have to go to university for 5 years. A doctor studies medicine and a dentist studies dentistry. The cost of university tuition in the UK is capped, and most universities charge the maximum that they're allowed to charge. That amount is currently about £9,000 per year. The students have to pay for the first 4 years of tuition fees themselves, but the government covers the 5th year for both medicine and dentistry. On top of tuition fees, students have to pay for their living costs while they're at university, during which time they're not earning any income to pay for those living costs. Dentistry and medical students don't have time to work even a part-time job while they're studying, so they have to take out another type of student loan on top of their tuition fee loans called a maintenance loan, which is designed to cover living costs while studying at university. Alternatively to a maintenance loan, students might be able to borrow or be gifted money from their families to pay for their living costs. But not everyone's in that position, and most students have to take the maintenance loan. The maximum amount of money that a student who's living away from home can borrow is about £10,000 per year. So 5 years of university, borrowing £9,000 per year for tuition for 4 of the years, and borrowing £10,000 per year for living costs for all 5 of the years, brings both the medical and dentistry students' loans to £86,000 each. If their household income is below a certain amount, they might be eligible to receive various grants. But for this video, we're not including grant money because not everyone's going to qualify for that. After university, the medical school graduate becomes a junior doctor and has 5 more years of learning and exams. The total cost of training during these 5 years is about £220,000. It turns out that £220,000 is paid for by the government. The student doesn't have to pay for it themselves. So junior doctors don't have to pay their training costs, but they do still have living costs during those 5 years. They're able to pay for those living expenses out of their junior doctor's salary. They don't have to take out more debt. So the total debt incurred by a doctor in becoming qualified is about £86,000. After those 10 years of training, the doctor becomes a general practitioner. That's at 28 years old if they started university at the usual age of 18. They could then choose to study for 4 more years to specialize in something, but we're only going to consider a general practitioner doctor in this video. Back to the dentist. After the dentistry student finishes their 5 years of university, they just have to complete 1 year of supervised work in a dental practice to become fully qualified. It doesn't cost them anything personally to do this year of supervised work. They just get a lower salary for the year because they're still in training. So a dentist's total training time is 6 years, 4 whole years less than the 10 years it takes to become a doctor. Now let's talk about salaries. And remember that we're talking about UK salaries specifically. Of course, salaries in other countries will vary. The salaries that we're going to be looking at are what the NHS pays its doctors and dentists. If you're watching this video and you're not from the UK, you might not be familiar with the NHS, the UK's National Health Service. We're very fortunate over here to not have to pay for healthcare out of pocket. We have this thing called the National Health Service that's funded by the government and pays for doctors, dentists, hospitals, and all sorts of medical treatments. They don't pay for just anything you want, like you can't just call up and say, I want this procedure, book me in. A medical professional has to deem a treatment necessary. But if it is necessary, all the costs are paid for, or at least it's very heavily subsidized. For doctors and dentists, working for the NHS isn't their only option. They could become self-employed and work for themselves, or they could go and work for someone else's private practice, and they could earn significantly more money for doing that. Some decide to do a blend of working for the NHS on some days and privately on other days. But to not make this video too complicated, we're going to assume that our doctor and our dentist both work exclusively for the NHS. The NHS pays their doctors and dentists a base salary, and they show those salaries on their website. They also pay extra for working overtime, nights and weekends, which means that earnings vary from doctor to doctor and dentist to dentist. But to keep things simple for when we're working out who's going to end up with the most money by retirement, a doctor or a dentist, we're just going to assume that neither of them are working any overtime, any nights or any weekends, and therefore we can just consider their base salaries. Base salaries on the NHS website are given as ranges. I'm just going to use the middle salaries from the ranges. Given that, a junior doctor's base salary is £31,000 per year, or £25,000 per year after tax. The after tax amount is what's important because that's what they get to actually take home and spend or save or invest or do whatever with. Once a junior doctor becomes a fully qualified general practitioner doctor, their base salary increases to £78,000 per year or £54,000 after tax. And then moving on to dentists, during their 1 year of supervised training, a dentist earns about £34,000 or £27,000 after tax. And once fully qualified and working for the NHS, the base salary of a dentist is £68,000 or £48,000 after tax. We've covered the cost of becoming qualified, we've looked at salaries, and now onto the good bit. Who's going to end up wealthier? I'm going to say that a young doctor or a young dentist will start out in life with personal expenses of £1,500 per month. In most places in the UK, £1,500 is enough to cover living costs, including rent, as well as some reasonable discretionary spending. I'm also going to assume that after they've paid their personal monthly expenses, both the doctor and the dentist are going to be investing all of their take-home income, and they're going to be getting a 7% annual investment return. A very achievable return. But before they start doing any investing, both of them are going to be putting all of their spare income into paying down their student loans to avoid paying any unnecessary interest. I'm going to be increasing their salaries in line with inflation as the years go by, and I'm going to be doing the same with their personal monthly expenses, but I'm going to be adding on an additional 2% per year to account for lifestyle inflation. In other words, they'll be spending slightly more money on stuff each year without really realizing it, as they want a slightly nicer house, a slightly nicer car, and slightly nicer holidays. Because why not? They can afford it. They're a doctor or a dentist. At age 18, both the medical student and the dentistry student start with a net worth of £0. They don't have any assets yet, but they also haven't taken on any debt yet. By age 23, after 5 years of university, they both have a negative net worth of minus £86,000. By age 28, the doctors just become fully qualified after being a junior doctor for 5 years. They've managed to pay off most of their student debt, and their net worth stands at minus £19,000. Meanwhile, the dentist has been fully qualified and on their higher salary for 4 years already. They've paid down all of their student debt, and their net worth is £74,000 in the positive. By 35, the doctor's net worth is a respectable £330,000, and the dentist's is £437,000. By age 45, the doctor's net worth is about £1.3 million, and the dentist's is closer to £1.4 million. By age 55, the doctor's just overtaken the dentist with a net worth of £3.3 million compared to the dentist's £3.2 million, but they're still pretty close. By 65 years old, retirement age, the doctor has £7 million and the dentist has £6.6 million. They both end up with a similarly high net worth by retirement. If you came to this video because you were struggling to decide whether to become a doctor or a dentist and it came down just to which earns the most money, it turns out that you're going to be pretty well off either way, so don't worry about that. Whichever career path you end up taking, just make sure to invest as much money as possible as early on as possible, and try not to fall victim to lifestyle inflation where you want to buy even more expensive stuff year after year. By keeping your spending in check and investing as much money as possible, you'll end up wealthier in the long term. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is Debt to Millionaire. Subscribe.